Good afternoon. This afternoon I'm going to show you how to draw this simple cabinet. It's a 3-box cabinet. The first box is a Lazy Susan. The second box is a 3-draw bank. And the third box is the standard base with draw. The dimensions starting from this point to this point is 47 inches. So it's 47 inches long. The opening of this box is 15 inches and the opening of this box is 15 inches. Now this is a story stick here. Very much like the old story poles that carpenters used to use. We draw it with this story stick tool, which you'll see in a moment. And we start off by using what we call a left pivot connector, and I'll explain that in a moment. And we end with the right opening. Now the right opening is something you use when what you're going to have next to the cabinet is something like a dishwasher. In other words, you're going to have an opening between two sets of cabinets and you're going to stick a dishwasher in there. So when it does that, when you use a right opening or left opening, it just puts a very shallow end panel on it so that as you look through the cracks between the dishwasher and the cabinet, you don't see the construction holes. Just an inexpensive way of using an end panel. Over here, as I mentioned, we have a left pivot connector. If you look at this cabinet, you'll notice it's symmetrical along a line that goes from the middle of this line to the middle of these doors right here, right? This line right here. This part, if you mirror it and rotate it around here, or pivot it around here, makes up this left half. So what happens is, whatever marker you use here will be pivoted out here and end up here. And I'll sort of demonstrate that for you a little bit later. But right now, let's just remember the cabinet is 47 inches long. This opening is 15 and this opening is 15. And let's draw this cabinet. I've opened up a new SketchUp model. Notice it's untitled, hasn't been saved, and that's the very first thing I have to do. So I will save it. And I'll place it on my desktop and call it a simple cabinet. Right here. I'm going to overwrite the one I had here before. So I just say yes. Okay. After saving, the next thing I have to do is create a CabWriter project. Now I only do this once, and I'll use this tool right here to create a project. Notice when I create a project, the project name is the same as the file name. Once you use this create project and this dialog box opens up, you have your CabWriter project, so you can simply close it at this point. Now when I draw my cabinets, if I were to start drawing them now, they would be drawn with some settings called factory settings, which are basically face frame cabinets. I don't want face frame cabinets, I want frameless cabinets. So what I'm going to do is start off with some default called frameless. If I go to this tool right here that says open and load CabWriter defaults, I can bring up this dialog box. And in this dialog box are a number of imperial defaults, a number of metric defaults, and some defaults that I created by making changes to other defaults and saving them as my own set of customized defaults. Today, what we're going to use is an imperial set of defaults called Frameless, pure frameless cabinets. So I'll choose that and say Load. Now in my CabWriter settings, I've loaded Frameless settings. And so I can close this. And I'm ready to start drawing. The first thing I want to draw are walls. I want to give myself a couple of walls to draw on. So I can use this Construct Walls tool right here. And I'll start at this construction point. And I'll move out. Now, a couple of things about the wall tool and a rule for drawing in CabWriter. Any CabWriter model has to be in the positive green, positive red area. That's this area here. Notice that this is positive green. This is negative green right here. This is positive red. This is negative red. Everything has to be in the positive green, positive red quadrant. Well, as I draw this wall, notice it's outside that quadrant. I can bring it inside by hitting the Control key. If I hit the Control key, it switches from inside to outside. I want it on the inside. The other thing to notice, if you look at the cursor, you'll see a pencil and a red stripe. The red stripe says hot. In other words, this is an indoor wall. It's 4.5 inches wide per our CabWriter settings. If I want to draw an outside wall, I could use the Alt key, click it once. Notice the cursor changes to a blue stripe for cold, and the moment I move the mouse, the wall gets wider, 6.5 inches per our CabWriter defaults. But I'm going to change it back to red and an inside wall. And I'm going to make this wall 12 feet long by just dragging it out. I don't have to click. Drag it out. Type 12 feet. Enter. Now I have a wall that's 96 inches high per our CabWriter settings, 12 feet long, and I want to put another wall down. I'd like that wall to start at the back corner here, which is kind of hard to pick out. Well, there it is right there. You can pick it out in a few ways. You can tease this over and hope you pick it out. You can use the X-ray tool and be sure to pick it out. Or you can simply start here. Notice if you just start here, it draws the wall along the red axis and it's started at the back face. I'm going to type 12 feet again, just to give myself 2 walls. Okay, now typical, I'm going to use the tape measure tool now. Typical base cabinets are 24 inches deep. So what I want to do with this tape measure tool is start at the base of this wall, click, and bring a parallel line out 24 inches. And I'll do the same here. 24 inches. That gives me the front face of the cabinets. And so now that I have that, and recalling the dimensions from the cabinet I want to draw, I'm going to start with the story stick. I'll start here where these 2 lines intersect. I'll click once, come out along this line. Doesn't matter how far along this line. but it has to be on the line. That tool tip, I want to see that tool tip called online, and click. That brings up this dialog box. And from the dialog box, I can choose the end treatment for this cabinet. Remember, I wanted it to be a left pivot connector. So I'll choose left pivot connector. Next, I'll zoom in a little bit here. Notice I have actually two marks. The story stick tool has several modes. If I click once with the control key, it changes to a centering mode. If I click a second time, it changes to a distance mode. The distance mode behaves very much like the tape measure tool. So I can click on this point here, come out 47 inches. Don't click at this point, just beyond the line, and don't click. And type 47, enter, and come back this way and click. And I'll choose right opening. Now I'm going to use the distance tool again. 2 clicks on the control key. I'll click here. I have to click on that guide point. Come out along the line. Remember, this second time, don't click. Just beyond the line, type 15, enter. And now I want my second point to be on this side, because this is my opening from here to here. So I want my sides to be on this side. So I'll just click anywhere on this line as long as it's on the line. And notice it snaps back. It knows the width of this marker. I'll use the distance tool again. Start here. Come out along the line. 15, enter. And this time, I want to come over this side and click. And again, it snaps in place. With that, all I have to do is hit the end key, the E-N-D key on the keyboard, end key. That brings up our box selector. And notice if I move this box selector out of the way, that right now, it's looking to know what this box is, because that's highlighted in blue. And that's my first box. That's box 1. Well, I'm going to make that a Lazy Susan. This next box, which is box 2, I'm going to make a draw bank base with 3 draws. By the way, if you remember, I drew this set of markers first, and then this set of markers. So I went from left to right, which means this was box 1, this was box 2, and this is going to be box 3. Had I started with this marker and then gone to this marker, this would be box 1, this would be box 2, and this would be box 3. Okay, so I've chosen Draw Bank Base. I'm going to hit Next. This time it wants to know what this box is. It's box 3. And I'm going to make that a standard base with 1 draw. 1 door and 1 draw. And I'll just hit OK. By the way, notice this button is now OK instead of Next, because it knows when it gets to the last box, and it'll now change this button to an OK button, which means you're done with the cabinet. And there we go. We've got our cabinet. Okay, so this was the right opening, and we've got that. This was a connector. The reason you use a connector, a left pivot connector, The reason you use a connector is you might want to put another cabinet right next to it. So if I want to put another cabinet right next to it, butting up against this one, where do I start my story stick? Well, if you notice, if I take this line right here, bring it out and bring it back until it says 0, you notice it goes right through where that marker started. I want to find that same kind of point for this cabinet. So I can start right here on this edge of the side. It's on edge. But where do I come out? Well, I can't use this the way it is. I can't use that as the distance because notice that's not red. That's at an angle. And the reason it's at an angle, if I look at it from the top, is this door front is offset from the side by 3/32. That's called the clearance gap. So what I want to do is come back here, hit the red arrow key once, just tap on the red arrow, I'm sorry, not the red arrow key, but the right arrow key, and that'll lock me to the red axis. Now I can use this point here as a place to stop. And I click there, and notice now down here I've got an intersection. That's what I want, just like this intersection over here. All right, now I can use my story stick to create another cabinet over here. And I'll just do one cabinet, 18 inches wide, and I'll put an end panel on it. So I'll start here, click, come over here, click, brings up the end selector dialog box. I want this to be a right connector because I'm connecting to this cabinet. So I'll just make it a right connector. I'm going to use my distance tool, 2 clicks on the control key. I'll come out on this line. I'll type 18 inches because that's how wide I want my cabinet to be. Notice I didn't click there. I'm just on the line, no click. Type 18 inches. This time I'll come inside and click. And it says, what do you want that to be? I want it to be a left sheet. And it bounces back in place. I'll hit the end key. And I'm going to choose, this time, a drawbank combo base with 3 draws. There we go. Notice that I've got my end sheet here. On this end I've got an opening so I can put a dishwasher here. And these 2 cabinets are butted together just like these are. And there we go, I have my cabinet. Okay, I hope you've learned something. And I'm going to call it quits right here. And see you in the next video. Have a good day.